Myself, Mr. Manoj Kumar, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Education, Jamshedpur Community College. I undertook paper 9 of semester 3rd, that is assessment for learning. My topic of discussion is assessment and learning. The first question generally arises: what is the meaning of learning? How you define learning? More commonly, it is a change in the behavior of the individual in terms of knowledge and experiences. Whatever change that has been reflected in terms of behavior is called learning. Psychologically, it can be defined as any modification in the behavior. So any type of modification in behavior in a desired direction and that occurs in the individual and which is relatively permanent and recurrent, then it is called learning. These changes generally occur at cognitive level, at affective level, at psychomotor level, in construction of knowledge, the way of working. So we see that in the entire system of acquisition of knowledge, the students or in the individual know and understand the every aspect of life. He or she changes the behavior accordingly as per need and requirement. Then we say that learning happens. Thus, one point must be noted here, student, that learning is a process that occurs at the level of, at the mental level, at emotional level, at physical level, and psychological level. So the next question, the next point generally arises: what is a word that is generally related to learning, that is called assessment. So what is assessment? Learning is a journey. It is a journey which has a specific direction. So whether we want in the right direction or wrong direction, generally we want to see that we are going in the right direction or wrong direction. During the travel, one wants that what is the right direction and what kind of strategies we need during the travel so to reach the destination. The role of assessment here automatically comes. We generally want to ascertain whether we are choosing the right direction or wrong direction. Whenever we choose right direction, that means learning. Learning as well as what assessment occurs. We are assessing that the right direction. So assessment is a process of measuring that whether we are going in the right direction, and if someone going in the right direction, then it is okay. So what is the relationship between learning and assessment? Whenever we talk about learning, means what is the objective of learning? How we want to go to a particular direction, or what is our destination or goal, and what are the how we want to go there. So the clear cut understanding has been developed whenever we want to go to a particular learning objective. We see educational objective, learning experiences, and the change in the behavior pattern in a holistic way. Whenever we are talking about the teaching learning processes, assessments play a pivotal role. The function of assessment is not only to assess how much distance we have traveled, but to provide impetus to learning and to evolve a quality in the learning processes, and ultimately to attain the objective of learning. What is the objective of learning? So, whether we are achieving those objectives or not is the function of assessment. In the context of education, whenever we are analyzing this thing, then it becomes a complex, because in the learning processes there are so much amount of analysis, that how much the student learns, to what extent his knowledge or her knowledge has been attained, and what is needed in order to improve the overall learning system. So there is a interdependence relationship between assessment and learning. I must say that both learning and assessment go simultaneously. There is a deep relationship between learning and assessment, and both go simultaneously in order to make the teaching learning process more effective. I must say that both must go simultaneously. Why? It is because before NCF 2005, it has been seen learning as a separate entity, while assessment as another entity. But after NCF 2005, it has been seen that both must go simultaneously in order to develop all-round development of the students. How it is possible? All-round development means what? The students or the individual develops cognitive level, affective levels, psychological level, psychomotor level. That means each and every dimension of the personality must be developed. So there is interdependence relationship between learning and assessment, and both go simultaneously. Both are complementary to each other. Then it becomes more fruitful in the teaching learning processes. The next point: what are the kinds of assessment? There are so many kinds of assessment, but in our syllabus, the three type of assessment has been mentioned. That is the first one, that is assessment of learning. Second one is assessment for learning, and the third is assessment as learning. Assessment of learning. Assessment of learning is a kind of assessment in which the acquisition of knowledge in a particular subject has been assessed to the students. How much knowledge has been acquired in a particular subject by the student in a stipulated period of time in a class, that has been assessed. The students' concepts, informations, and other skills, and the skills that has been assessed, because it is very important for their development, and it has very narrow in scope, in terms of there is a less scope of analysis in terms of the other activity. Whatever the knowledge acquired by the student in the assessment of learning, in the case of assessment of learning, whatever the knowledge acquired by the student, that has been done by various methods. For example, in most of the school we see that weekly test, monthly test, half-yearly test that has been taken. The teacher delivers a lecture and the student learns. Here, at the end of the delivery of content, the teacher generally may ask a verbal question, or may may evaluate or assess by written test. So written test, whenever taken uh, in all the test, then the scores has been recorded that what percentage of scores that has been obtained by the students. That means subject based knowledge that has been that are ascertained, and accordingly pass and fail has been allotted to them. So basically assessment of learning is a pass or assessment of learning is a pass or fail. How much knowledge, how, what is the status of the student in the class, how much he scored. That's all. It is a of comparison of the students. One student has been compared to other in terms of pass or fail, how much students are above average or below average. The function of assessment of learning is to determine how much student acquires a particular knowledge of a particular subject at the end of the test, or how much students are below the average. One of the very important limitations in this assessment is that we can't ascertain the various dimensions of the, we can't ascertain and determine another dimension of personality. Even we can't able to ascertain how the student learns, what are the difficulties in learning, how they think, how the skills has been included in their personality. So these are the things which are not assessed in case of assessment of learning. When we are talking about assessment for learning is also an assessment of the acquisition of knowledge of a subject, as well as what the experiences and the other assessment of other activities. Here scholastic and scholastic activities are assessed by the teacher, so that he can allot the grades to the students. Here grading system is very important, while in case of assessment of learning, scoring is important. Besides acquisition of knowledge, the other dimension of personality has been addressed. The methods of assessment for learning are to assess the ability of the student in the various activities like painting, dancing, or singing, debating, or to assess the communication skills. So the other dimensions of personality that has been evaluated by the teacher as in case of assessment for learning. And in most of the book, assessment for learning formative evaluation has been called. It is a continuous process. How it is continuous process? Because the teacher delivers a lecture and the student learns the subject, and he also involved in some of the activities. And each and every time he was under the observation of the students. The teacher know the cognitive needs as well as their emotional needs and the difficulty of learning. So there is a scope of continuous learning processes. All round development is the keynote of this kind of assessment. Feedback system is also the key characteristics of assessment for learning. The students are assessed on the basis of the feedback taken by the teacher. Teacher utilizes various methodology of teaching so that the teacher and the student learns. On the basis of feedback, the teacher reorient their methodology of teaching and thereby improves the method of teaching, and so it becomes fruitful for entire teaching learning processes. The student become uh, more uh, more prominent in terms of their acquisition of knowledge, their dynamism in relation to their personality. They evolve their other dimension of personality as well. Leadership quality, altruism, cooperation, decision making, the observations. These are the key characteristics that automatically imbibe in the students by those activities. So subject based knowledge as well as what various traits of the personality that is added in the students, which is the key feature of assessment for learning. In my opinion, it is a continuous and it is a part of the continuous and comprehensive evaluation. The third type of assessment, that is assessment as learning, and according to me it plays a very important role in the assessment. Assessment in learning, nature of learning or form of learning, as well as metacognition investigation are the two key elements in assessment of learning. Metacognition means it is the self-awareness or self-evaluation of the individual. A student evaluates himself, that whether he is traveling in the right direction or in the wrong direction. He evaluates himself, and he also evaluates various strategies to reach the goal by using its own knowledge and experiences. Teacher only play a role of what mentors, only guide the students. Critical thinking in this case is very important because the students understand, analyzed, and even evaluate himself the whole process of acquisition of knowledge. It is a systematic, step process of learning in which knowledge, understanding, application, and analysis, critical thinking, these are always come in mind, and these always go in the scientific way. A new perspective has been added in the acquisition of knowledge, so that it become more fruitful for the student as well as what for the system of education. In this kind of assessment, as I have earlier mentioned, that student evaluate himself. He also evaluate the other students. He evaluates the teachers. The teacher also evaluate himself. So there is a very little scope of mistake in the entire teaching learning processes. So it is fruitful for our education system. Lastly, I want to summarize that there is a good relationship between learning and assessment, and whenever we are analyzing these three kind of assessment, as far as I am concerned, that learning of assessment is narrower because it only assess the student